And I just want to make sure that, obviously, that you get the points that you deserve. If your screen is blurry and you can't tell what some of those code letters are, L, V, N, L, K, V is the code. I think she wants to be part of the meeting, everybody. Yep. You know well. Give you about another 30 seconds before we get started. And again, this is just practice for your test. Okay. There's only going to be about 4 questions, but we're going to talk through kind of how we get to the answer, what to be looking for, stuff like that. Thank you, Lily. 12 people. Waiting about another 3 or 4 of us to get joined up. Okay, I'll give you another little bit more time. Okay. All right, I'm gonna get going. There's 14. Hopefully, we're starting to load up. There we go. There's 16. Okay. First thing we're gonna start with. Okay, CPI. Okay, the CPI is a public sector. Basically, it's a group that tries to gather data on corruption statistics. Okay, so you've got what's called the Corruption Perception Index, but what it is you have the Transparency Institute. It's a group that studies it. Okay, that studies government's bank records and then gives out surveys to the people that live within that country on how they perceive the government as either corrupt or do they really put all the money back towards the people and have the best interest in the people. Okay. If you don't know what corruption means, okay, it's that last sentence: abuse of entrusted power for private gain. Okay. There can be corruption in any institute. Could be schools, could be companies, could be the government. All right. I mean, just kind of depends on what you're looking at. Okay. But all it's saying is the power or the money that gets trusted to you to use for the best possible way, you're using it for yourself. That's usually what corruption means. Okay. So here's our first one. This is for the CPI. Okay, Corruption Perception Index. True or false? A CPI score of 90 means the country is highly corrupt. Make sure you're reading through the details, okay, the descriptions, what the legend says, okay, and then true or false. Okay, give you about another 10 seconds, and then we'll talk. looks like everybody's responded. Sweet. Okay. 12 would say false, 5 true. Now, CPI score of 90. Okay, let's figure out what that means. Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. We're reading up here at the top in their description. Scores are on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 means that a country is perceived as highly corrupt. Okay, so if you have a low number, that is not good. That means the perception index is basically labeling you as a country as very corrupt. Money is not being put back towards the people. Okay. Perfect. Yep. Okay. So 90 in this case is good. Okay. But the statement says it's highly corrupt. So in this case, we want to make sure we have selected false. So most of us got there. Just make sure we're paying attention to the description up top, especially in these types of maps. Here we go. Question 2. In 2018, what country or countries in Africa is the least corrupt? Okay. What I will say is Western Sahara up here, this top left country, that is gray. So that means no data. Okay. Just to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay. Now, if you don't know the country's names, it's okay. You can pull up a new tab and type in map of Africa to help yourself out. All right. But if you can do it from memory, that would obviously be preferable. But I'll give you about a minute here to answer number 2, and then we'll talk about it. About another 20 seconds. All right, I'm going to show our responses here. Okay. A couple of you weren't listening. Understand that, and it's okay. I just want to make sure that we all are on the same page. When we look at these maps, right, and they're gray, like Western Sahara is, that means no data. So we can't even include them in the answer because we don't know. Okay. Now, some of you were putting in countries that had a dark red shade, like the Congo, Angola, okay, South Sudan, Chad. Those countries are very corrupt, right? Because when you have a low score, that means you are highly corrupt. We are looking for countries that are the least corrupt, not very corrupt at all. Okay. And I know many of you got Botswana, which is right here. Okay. It's the lightest, it's a light shade of pink. Okay. And they're going to score somewhere between 60 to 70, which is the highest number on the continent. Okay. Which is pretty good. I think the United States is like right around a 70. So Botswana is not that far off from the United States when you're comparing it to another country. Okay. Does anybody have questions on how we're understanding this map with corruption? High numbers mean they are not very corrupt. That's a good thing. Low numbers mean they're very corrupt. That is a bad thing. We don't like countries that are really corrupt because that means the money's not going towards the people to better their situation. Okay. Any questions on that? All right, real quick, I'm going to run through all four of these. Okay, closed autocracies. Closed meaning citizens don't have the right to vote. Okay, so when you ever have a closed autocrat or a closed autocracy, citizens don't have the right to vote. And two, one person's in power for a prolonged amount of time. Okay, this is normally like you see like a king, queen, prince, dictator. Okay, those types of people are in that role. Okay, an electoral autocracy is kind of like China. Okay, you had the Communist Party, all right, but the people didn't vote in the president of China. Okay, the people that were in the Communist Party elected Xi Jinping, who's the president of China, to be the president. Okay, so electoral autocracies is, yes, people have a say, but normally the people are voting for the people that are going into the political party. And then the political party will then vote the president in as the leader. Still going to be an autocrat because that person makes the decisions. Okay. Understand that autocracy meaning self-rule. Okay. One person is in rule. That's what autocracy means. Okay. Third and fourth one. Now we move to democracies. Electoral democracy. It's probably your most popular version of governments in the world. All right. But what this is yes, the people have a say. Sorry about that. Dog's got a squeaky toy. An electoral democracy, yes, the people have a say and the majority wins. The thing that's different and doesn't make it a liberal democracy is that your minority groups, the people that are not the majority, are not protected. So majority is always going to win in an electoral democracy. Okay. Different with a liberal democracy, like the United States. Okay. You're going to have people that vote and the majority wins. Okay. But you also have minority groups, the people that are not a part of the majority, protected. Okay. Because you do have certain rights. Okay. You have the right to assemble, right of freedom of speech. Okay. Right to bear arms. I mean, you have all these things that you can, look at the Bill of Rights and say, hey, I have these reserved for myself, even though I'm not part of the majority that voted that person into power. Okay. So that's the quick synopsis there. All right. Question 3. What country has the only liberal democracy in the continent of Africa? Okay, again, if you need to pull up a new tab to understand what countries are which, since they're not labeled, feel free to do so. But this one's multiple choice, should be a little bit easier here. Okay, we're looking for the liberal democracy. Brian, that's a good question. Okay. That's not saying that, I guess that's what I'll say. Corruption perception is not just data. It's also what the people view their government as. Okay. So it may not be corrupt, but if the people view it as corrupt, like they don't feel like their needs are being met, okay, that's part of that statistic. Okay. So that doesn't necessarily mean 100% that's the case, but usually you want your citizens to feel like the government is doing the best they can for each of its citizens. Okay, which isn't always the case. All right. And then there's also some data that goes into it from bank records, like where's the money going to? Is the money going back to the people where governments are, where it should be? Okay. So, and if it's not, obviously the number comes down. Okay. But yes, no country has a perfect 100 score. Okay, I will say that. No country. I think one of the highest is like Switzerland. And they only have like an 80 some. Okay. I'll give you about another 10 seconds to answer your question. Okay, I'll lock them up in 3, 2, 1. All right, all of us got to Ghana. Well done. Okay, we're just looking for the darkest blue shade. Okay, and that's Ghana. Easy to select maybe Ivory Coast, okay, or Burkina Faso. But nice job on taking your time there. Okay, good. And now that is saying something. There's only one country in Africa that has a government set up to protect minority groups. Okay, and this is where normally you get into violent areas of countries when minority groups are being taken advantage of repeatedly. Okay, and the majority always wins over and over again, and then the minority groups don't have any type of say. That's normally where you get rebellion. Okay, and that where you can have violent outbreaks. Okay, because you're not protecting the smaller groups, you're always just siding with the majority. I'm not saying one side's better or one side's the worst. I'm just saying that's where we can see a source of problems when you do not have things set in place to protect groups that aren't going to always have a voice. Okay. All right, number 4. Why is democracy looked at as positive and autocracy looked at as a negative? Okay, so this is kind of more of what you think. All right, but remember, democracy, demo, meaning the people rule, the people have a say, versus an autocracy is where one person is in power, okay, and they are the ones that are going to stay in power and make decisions for the people. The people don't necessarily have a voice in who that's going to be. Okay, so real quick, give me like one sentence. Okay, give you about another 10 to 15 seconds to finish up what you're writing. All right, I want to see what you came up with. Okay. All right. I think much of your answers were very similar. Okay. Saying that you want to have the population's opinion, or they want to have the people have a say in the elections. Okay. And we obviously come from the United States, where we know that come election time and you're of 18 years old and you go and vote, you have a say in who's going to be a government leader. Okay. And we're used to that. Okay. And knowing that even if the person that we don't want to win does, we're going to have protections if we are in the minority group. Okay. So we're one of the few that have a liberal democracy throughout the world. Okay. There's only maybe 15 countries throughout the world that have a liberal democracy where you have the majority win, but you protect the minority. It's just not as popular as an electoral democracy. Okay. Now, I'm not saying one's better than the other. Okay. Because let's say up here in the top left, Morocco. Okay. And Morocco is a closed autocracy. They have a king. Okay. But from all accounts, the people in that area love the king. Like, he's very modern. Okay. He understands that where the world is going. Okay. Like Mr. Geller, if you guys know who Mr. Geller is, he's like across the hall. He coaches track. He's another history teacher. Okay. But he went to Morocco for like 3 weeks a couple years ago. And he's like, I was really surprised like how highly people talked of him, even if like you were in private. Okay. Like when they could have talked trash about him, but chose to say like, oh yeah, he's great. Like he lets us have our freedoms. So what I'm saying is, I think it probably depends on who's in power, right? If somebody wants to be super strict and not allow people to live their daily lives or have any rights or be a part of the economy, yeah, it can be really brutal. But if you have someone that's a solid leader and can understand what the people want, then I think you're okay having a closed autocracy. I think it's just going to depend on the person in power, which that's always going to be, right? That's the case with all 4 types of governments. Okay, who's in power and is their interest for the people? Okay, and if their interest is for the people, you're going to be just fine. Okay, so thank you and good job. I am going to end this, and then we're going to talk about your assignment here. Okay, so we're going to go back to Canvas here, and we're going to go to modules. This is our last thing. I'm just going to explain it real quick, and you guys can be on your way. And then for today's assignment, it's Nelson Mandela Speech Questions. Okay, for those of you that don't remember who Nelson Mandela is, open that up in a new window. This is what you'll see. Okay. For those of you that don't remember who Nelson Mandela is, okay, he is the first South African Black president, okay, that was elected under a democracy. So this is the transition from apartheid, where you have 10% of the white population staying in power, and those are the only people that were allowed to hold public office, okay, and that's transitioning to a democracy in 1994. Nelson Mandela is really key in organizing this, okay. He's elected president, and this is his inaugural speech. So his acceptance speech as the first Black president of South Africa. Now, I only stuck the second half of it, so I shortened it up. The first half's all thank yous and stuff like that. Okay, the second half is more about, okay, what are we going to do moving forward? Okay, so in terms of like total reading, it's probably not even a half a page. I just broke it up into single lines because that's where he pauses at the end of each line. Okay. Now you only have 3 questions to answer while reading this. Okay. The questions are at the bottom. What does Mandela pledge to liberate all people from? So in the speech, he talks about liberating all people from something. What is that? Okay. You'll put in the blue highlighted area. Okay. Number 2, what is the reward for dreams becoming reality? Okay. So he talks about finally our dreams have become what is going on right now. What's the reward, right? What has happened? Okay. Answer that in the blue highlighted area. And then number 3 is the summary. Okay. You've read through the second half of his speech. Okay. I know that this speech is about becoming president, but what is he trying to do with this speech? Okay, what was the purpose for writing it? Okay, and you're going to do that in 2 to 3 complete sentences for number 3 here. Okay, number 1 and 2, you don't need a complete sentence. Number 3, you need 2 to 3 complete sentences to give me a summary. Does anybody have any questions on this assignment? You're all right, Tony. It's okay. Okay.
Where is the assignment?
What is it?
Where is the assignment? I looked in modules and I didn't see it.
Okay. I'll share it real quick. So it's going to be in Canvas, and then you're going to go to week 5. So modules, underneath week 5, it's Nelson Mandela Speech. Okay. So that's South Africa's first elected president. It's the e-learning assignment for today. You'll click there, open it up in a new window, and you got about maybe 2 paragraphs of reading in total to answer these 3 questions at the bottom. Okay. All right. If you don't have any questions, you are free to go. If you do, stay on and ask. Okay. And you guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thanks. You too.